All right, let's talk about Japan's green growth strategy. This isn't just some minor policy tweak. We're talking about a plan that could literally define the country's future for the next 100 years. It's a huge gamble meant to totally reshape Japan's economy and environment. And believe me, it has the entire country split right down the middle.
So, what's the big deal here? Well, it all really comes down to one single, massive question. Is this whole strategy a smart, necessary investment in Japan's future, or is it just a ridiculously expensive pipe dream?
Okay, so before we get into the whole debate, let's first make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is this grand national project?
Now, this is the crucial part. This whole thing isn't just about, cutting emissions or being more green. Think of it more like a 2-for-1 deal. The goal is to hit carbon neutrality by 2050, for sure, but at the same time, they want to use that massive push to kickstart a whole new engine for Japan's economy. So it's really an economic strategy dressed up in green clothes.
But as you can imagine, a plan this huge has created a massive split. I mean, depending on who you talk to, this strategy is either the absolute smartest thing Japan could be doing, or it's a total fantasy.
And this really lays out the two opposing viewpoints perfectly. On one side, you've got the people who see it as a vital investment. They're talking about a new engine for growth, creating jobs, and keeping Japan competitive on the world stage. But then, on the other side, you have the folks calling it an unrealistic dream. They're worried it'll be a huge burden on regular people, a waste of tax money, and that it all banks on technology that isn't even proven yet. Okay, let's dig into the first big point of contention, the economy and jobs. How is this actually going to affect people's wallets and their livelihoods?
All right, so the supporters of this plan are basically saying, look, the whole world is in a sprint towards decarbonization. Standing still just isn't an option anymore. They argue that if Japan doesn't get in on this race, right now, it's going to get left in the dust, economically speaking.
And they're not just talking in hypotheticals. They're pointing to a massive number, 19 million. That's the government's estimate for how many new jobs could be created by 2050. And we're talking about brand new industries, things like renewable energy, next-generation batteries, and hydrogen tech.
But the other side comes back with a really serious warning. They say, okay, great, you're talking about all these new jobs, but what about the old ones? They argue this rosy picture totally ignores the very real pain for workers in traditional industries. Think coal, steel, the classic auto industry. Their big question is, what happens to those people when their jobs disappear? And who's going to end up footing the bill for all this disruption?
And that brings us to the second major issue, technology and just feasibility. I mean, can Japan actually do this? Is the tech ready to go?
Well, the people in favor of the plan are betting big on Japan's reputation as a tech giant. They're convinced that with the right government funding, Japan's engineers have the chops to not just play in the green tech space, but to actually lead the whole revolution.
And this is where their strategy gets really clever. It's not necessarily about building the entire finished product, like the solar panel itself. Instead, the focus is on dominating the market for the super high-value, critical components inside those products. We're talking about things like advanced battery separators and high-efficiency power semiconductors, the kind of tech where Japanese companies are already at the top of their game.
But opponents just aren't buying it. They say that's all just wishful thinking. They'll point out that when you look at the big picture, renewable energy, batteries, Japan is already playing catch-up to massive companies in China and Europe. And when you factor in the practical problems, like not having enough land for solar and wind farms, plus the insane cost of building a hydrogen economy from scratch, well, they say the goals are just flat-out unrealistic.
Now, the source material for this analysis was actually a formal debate, so you've got these powerful arguments on both sides. The big question is, who won? Which argument did the judges find more convincing in the end?
Well, after hearing everything, the judges made their call. The winner was the affirmative side. So victory went to the team arguing in favor of the green growth strategy.
So, why'd they win? Well, the judges laid out a few key reasons. For one, their whole investment story was just more logically consistent, and it was backed up with stronger evidence, like pointing to specific technologies and official data. But here's the real kicker. They completely flipped the script on the idea of risk. They successfully argued that the biggest gamble wasn't spending all this money on a new strategy. The real risk was doing nothing and getting left behind.
But look, just because you win a debate doesn't mean the policy is a guaranteed success in the real world, right? For Japan, the real verdict is still way out there. The country is truly standing at a massive crossroads.
And all of this leaves us with one final huge question.
What's the bigger gamble for Japan? Is it taking a massive risk and investing trillions into a bold, uncertain, green future? Or is the bigger risk to just stay the course, do nothing, and simply hope the rest of the world doesn't leave it behind? That right there is the multi-trillion yen question that Japan has to figure out.